There's that.
We'll figure out how to-
Hi, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the ARPA Commission on January 23rd, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. We just went around the room, did a informal roll call, and looks like we're missing Donna, Samantha, and Stuart Cobb, who is out on a call. So we have quorum, and we can move on to approval of minutes. And I don't know, do we have minutes?
Should, I sent them like just after. Oh,
December 19th, was that our last? Oh, January 9th.
During,
I don't have the 9th meeting because I need to do.
yeah, the
recording.
December 19th. Did I send it to all you guys? I don't know if I did.
I'm gonna say no. I guess the most important is, did Robin have, was it filed?
Hmm.
I think so. What was the date again?
January 9th.
And then December 19th, I think was the,
We have December 19th.
and we already approved them? Is that okay?
I think we did the 19th.
Yeah.
I'll tell you if we did the 19th.
We would have done them on the 1st, on the 9th.
No, we didn't do minutes on the 9th, so we can do the minutes from the 19th. We just don't have the minutes from the 9th. So I'll move to approve the minutes of December 19th.
Second? Troy seconded. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Jenny abstains. All right, so we'll move on to correspondence, and I don't think I have any to share with you all at this time. Other than I've gone back and forth with Donna and Kelsey just to see if we had any projects to close, and it turns out we do, which is the ARPA 14 Small Business and Nonprofit Assistance Program, which was approved for up to $300,000, and as of last week, all the checks were cleared, totaling $237,500, which means that $62,500 can be returned to ARPA Fund 19. And if anyone wants to make a motion to that effect, we can move on.
So I'll move to close ARPA 14 Small Business and Nonprofit Assistance Program and return $62,500 to ARPA Fund 19.
I'll second.
Any discussion about this? Before we close it? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so that's great. I'm glad they were able to get that money out, and I'm glad we can now close it too.
Can I ask Mike a quick question about it?
Mhm.
Will we hear back from them? Like, will there be follow-up through EDC so that maybe we can see how the funds were spent and maybe get a general reporting?
Most of that is in their application because they had to tell us what they were gonna do to
Right.
qualify, so we could do a follow-up and just basically check in or try to get some type of a reporting and talk with the EDC about it.
So I think maybe what would be helpful is, I know every single grant that went out, right? So they came through my office, but I don't remember this committee hearing all the businesses that we specifically were able to give dollars to and what they would have done with them. So we understood the program, and then it's, it shaped out and it went tremendously well, right? So I think people were very happy. I met with 2 groups of folks to give them their checks in person, and then the rest were mailed as they trickled in. So it was nice to talk with them, but I think it would probably be nice for this group to hear who the funds went to and a little bit about how they were used.
Yeah. Good idea.
Especially as we move forward and we have a little bit less and less business,
Mhm.
and hearing about that, I think, will be beneficial.
Yep. Okay, anything else? All right, so we can move on to number 6, updates on the previously funded requests, and we don't need to talk about them if there haven't been any updates. It's kind of the same list that we see every time. I don't know if there's anything to report on specific things. I think we know.
I'll speak to we're still waiting on some things from the devices, but specifically the meeting room equipment. This was an item that went to public, to town meeting prior to the ARPA commission.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of holding off on that as, we do have time to spend the funds, but as we move into a potential needs assessment, once the school building project lays out and determine the best use of those funds
Mhm.
for the spaces we have. None of the spaces here in the town office building are really adequately equipped for the technology that we need. So I want to make sure we use the equipment in the best possible way. And right now, everything is so incredibly expensive, so much more so than we started.
Mhm.
So we're still looking at some different options there. So it's going to be a little bit before we spend it.
So that's ARPA,
That is our 10.
yeah, 10. Let's see, what was that? I had a question about. Oh, this isn't a question about anything that's on this list, it's on the closed list, but I was gonna ask you, Jenny, about the people doing the volunteer connection.
So your community cares?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and how is that going?
So, as far as I know, she's conducting outreach to try and get an army of volunteers to assist our seniors in need.
Mhm.
So that, would be so super beneficial. We have a lot of need that we can't cover, so that's where we're at.
So I know we paid it in full already,
Yes.
so, do they give us like an update at any point?
I can request one if you'd like to.
Yeah, yeah, and, I'm just curious how they're gonna find the people, and I know someone who might wanna volunteer, so.
Nice.
Okay.
And I'd be
Thank you.
curious about how long, so maybe she could come in and talk to us.
That's a good
about
idea.
the
I'll invite her.
Process and, now that she has the funds, what that looks like, if she's already started, give us an update or about how long the process is.
I'd be happy to ask her.
Okay. I think that's it, unless anyone else has anything they wanna ask about, or.
Well, on ARPA 1718, I'm looking at an invoice that Carl presented to Alan. So assume is a tough word, but I'm assuming that Alan forwarded that. Is that something I was supposed to go through the committee on for the survey work, the first invoice?
No, so Alan should present that.
Yeah, but if you would bring it to
Yeah.
Donna, like the funds have been appropriated.
Yeah,
So if he has a bill, he would bring it to Donna, and Donna would pay it out of the fund.
Okay,
they're actually, right now, they're coming to Kelsey. And so she's processing, putting the purchase order, like all the necessary steps in place before it goes downstairs to accounting. I think if you just had the one for the survey, I think that already went through.
Right.
But we can, and well, I think we had. I can tell you.
I'm just asking, sure it's being processed.
I think I saw it, but I'm looking at the report that Donna sent us.
2200, 20,
18, 2,900, 2969 is what we've paid to date on that project, so that may be it. I do remember seeing the survey paperwork. But
all right,
we can follow up with Kelsey.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. But my guess is that's what that is.
Okay,
Jenny, on ARPA 21, the fuel bank,
Yes.
has that, you had said before that people were definitely asking, and
Oh,
that the fund was coming in handy.
very, very useful.
Yeah.
This year is very difficult for a lot of people.
So is there still funds left in it,
As
or?
far as I know, there's still funds left in it.
Okay, okay, good.
So again, we already extended $14,185.30. So
14 of the 25.
14,000 of the 25,000.
Yeah.
So, is there, I know when we talked about this, it was to go over a couple of years. We thought about that, if we continue in this year, what we'll have left for next year if we use it all in one.
Well, so we could just, at this point, stop using that and then use what I have in the fuel bank.
Okay,
I'm not sure how I would do that. That would probably be something that's done in finance as to where I would put the bills as opposed to bringing them to Kelsey. I give them to
Yeah,
Donna.
so right now, everything's going. through
Everything is going
this.
to ARPA first,
So
yes.
maybe just to give it some thought, because
Mhm.
since we're only down to about $10,000,
Mhm.
if we start using your fuel bank and then see how that balances out, if we need to
Yeah.
go back
That's a good
to
idea.
be able to extend it further.
Do you know, typically, like, at this point in the winter, is it mostly front loaded with people asking and receiving their funds in the beginning of this winter, or is it throughout the
So-
winter?
It's usually, and once it gets cold, people usually start asking around October, and then around January, we get people also, the people who are like, oh, I should have applied for energy assistance, and they need something to get them through until their application has been processed.
Okay. All right, so it probably is good. Yeah, you probably won't get another rush of people.
I don't imagine I'll get another rush now.
Okay.
Is it typically one use?
It's
Per
typically
household?
one use per
Okay.
household. I do make exceptions when there's vulnerable people in the household, if there's children, elderly, disabled. Right is right.
And I know Kelsey has some of this reporting, but I know you would have them. Can you, if you could just maybe, I don't know, can you tell us how many households that 14,000 was able to help? And I'm okay if you don't have it now, like in
I
the next
don't,
meeting.
I don't, but next meeting I'd be happy to give you
Because
numbers.
with
Sure.
fuel, the increase in price of heating oil,
Mhm.
we know it's not going as far as it would have
No,
a
it's
couple of
not,
years ago.
but I could give you exactly those
Okay.
numbers for the next meeting.
Okay, anything else?
I have a question about that ARPA 21, like, because it was so huge. And there's only $10,000 left, is there any way that, like, I'd almost personally, I'd like to see, and I know funds are getting down, but I'd like to almost see like taking another 10,000 and just, and adding to it for the people who need it next year, but I don't know, like, and I know we're getting down with limited funds for the requests that we have, but something like that is like so important. I don't know, I just don't know like how we would go about it, or, you know, but because I know this goes for another couple of years too, so I see that that would be beneficial for using the funds, but I don't know how we would go about
Well,
doing that.
one thing I can tell you is, so as of, today, there's 219,000 that we can appropriate. We have 295,000 worth of requests, and there's at least another 45,000 that should become available to us after today, after some of these other projects close. So we're still gonna have some money to appropriate after, let's say we appropriate all that we have available today, we still are gonna have some at some point, which maybe in a few months, we would know like what that picture looks like and what your needs are.
And the 62,500 that's coming back from ARPA 14 is not,
Is included in that 219.
oh, it is, okay.
Yes. Yep.
I have the same concern Robin does, which is why I wonder how many families that's able to help. We did talk about this when Jenny put this request through, that with the increase in cost, it may not go as far as we would have hoped it to go. And just don't know how bad things are gonna get. Certainly, we've been at this a year now as we talk about the price of everything going up. So some of these families are having to deal with, maybe this is where they can get assistance easier than some of the other expenses they may have within their household. And I'm concerned it's not gonna go as far
It's
as we'd
true.
like it to. How healthy is your fuel fund?
It's good. It's not the best, but it's good.
Is it anywhere close to this 25,000?
It's more than the 10,000.
Okay.
So I have that at least to fall back on. This year has been particularly tricky because not only are we, people are still reeling from the impact of COVID, but the home heating fuel has gone up, but also we have the Eversource, and our electric families are also really struggling with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all are. So it's just kind of been a double.
And so I look at the 25,000, it seemed like a lot based on what we were doing. If we were just doing You know, household heating, but again, I think more people may need that didn't before because their money's having to go someplace else. And it gives me pause to say, is this something we should take a second look at? Because I think we know that all of these financial effects are a result of COVID and the main purpose of these dollars was to help individuals and small businesses. So we're trying to help them by offsetting some costs that could be tax related, right? But I don't know, this directly hits households and are most vulnerable. So I'd love us to give some serious consideration to adjusting that number upwards.
I'm total agreement with that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I use propane. What is the cost of oil these days?
Oh, it's a lot.
I mean,
It's all
what is it?
over, everything's a lot.
Gallon
I
for the
got it,
gallon?
I think I paid for,
It's over 4?
oh yeah,
I
Well-
paid almost 6 when I ordered it. Oh, it was a while ago.
That's insane.
yeah. It's dropped back, but it was, I want to say the 420s, I think maybe we got it a couple weeks ago. So it's significant.
I think it was $5.49 when I got it.
Yeah.
It was,
So you can see it just doesn't go very far, not as far as, 2 years ago, right? When COVID was really bad still, it was going a lot farther, not anymore. But yeah. hopefully-
So you all have an option, as you know, to go to an aggregator on electricity and not use Eversource. You should explore that if you're so interested. You save money, guaranteed.
Yeah. Okay.
FYI.
And I think helping maybe some of those families that might have that need understand that process. Would be beneficial.
No, I'd be happy to get you numbers and everything that you would need to look at how the program's been helping people so far and how many people it's helped.
Great. Anything else? Any other projects anybody wants to ask about, comment about? Well, if not, we can move on to the item number 7, which is our funding request submission possible action. So this is the list of all the things that were heard at the public hearing on the 9th. And, basically, like I said, there's $295,000 worth of requests here. And as of today, we have 219,000 available to appropriate. Not saying we need to appropriate all of that today. I think it'd be good to, if there's something on here that we know we're definitely not going to approve ever, we should probably decide that. And if there's something that we absolutely think should get done and needs to get done sooner than later, I think we should decide that too. That's just our thought.
So the 219 doesn't include any of item 7, right?
Right,
Okay.
right. We have 219 to spend on all of item 7.
Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, there's 2 big projects that look like they're gonna be returning money once they do close to the tune of $45,000. So that will come in dribs and drabs, and there's several of these other projects that, probably are gonna give us back $1,000 here, $500 there. But we also might want to put some more money into some of these things like we just talked about. So that's our situation.
I think I would like us to see us set aside, and I'm gonna be as bold to throw a number of $50,000. And not spend that immediately so that we can address some needs of people that might come before us. And this, I think, is just one of them. If there's additional ways which we can, put funds that we just kind of hold that back. I know we have 45,000 we think should be coming back to us, but because we don't know whether or not it will, if something were to drastically change on any of those projects, I'd hate for us to count on that and there'd be no money. But set some of that money aside in the event that there's something directly related to, whether it be businesses or households, or dare I say it, our schools and kids, we know without a doubt they were affected.
Yeah, I don't think
Just-
we ever address a contingency fund, so I guess we're addressing that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that we can kind of,
It's good accounting.
yeah, and my guess is that most of them would probably come through some of the programs that we already have seen and how we can bolster that, so I'm gonna make a motion that we I want to encumber it, yes, encumber $50,000 for future use.
I would second. Somebody have anything?
Any discussion? Yeah, Robin seconded.
Sorry, Ron.
That's okay. Any more discussion about that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Okay, so that's one decision. I'm gonna add that into my list.
So what does all this equal, Christina? Number 7, we add it all up.
$295,600.
We've got 219, so minus
Minus the 50,000, right?
minus 50.
Yeah, so I'll tell you right now. Spreadsheet.
169.
Wow.
We can do it.
At 169, 128.
Yep. Let's see.
That's our number, 428, 2800,
169.
428.
428.
All right, I'm gonna give us something to talk about. So I'm gonna start with ARPA 44. I'm gonna make a motion to approve ARPA 44 extended learning opportunities for $20,000.
Troy seconded.
These were the field trips and all the special things.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we
So,
can discuss.
so motion to approve it at the full 20,000.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I recall, Bill said that would be 10,000, was the plan 10,000 each school, or was it just 20,000 overall? I know the recess money was gonna be split in half each school. And this one, just help me. Log into the meeting, and it may just be 20,000 because each opportunity may be really varied. If you can join us.
I can try to pull up the application.
Filter through it here. Could I ask, I know Mr. Christensen is on the call, and this was something he really was passionate about and worked with the superintendent on. While we wait for Phil to respond, if he remembers quickly, then we can pull up our notes. Arthur,
Yes,
do you recall, as we all scour our notes and wait for the superintendent's response, if the plan, if the discussion was $20,000, just where it was needed, if that was a cost they were planning to split amongst the two schools?
from what I remember, it was split between the two schools, but there was some discussion about certain opportunities might give a discount if they're already going to one school to go to another school in the town.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, their submission says 10 per school.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine. There's Phil.
So we're discussing the extended learning opportunities. Was that one that you were planning to just split evenly between each school, or would it be dependent on the programs they chose?
No, we would come as close to even as we
Okay.
could. That was the intent of it.
Okay.
And if they want to, if they have extra money in their principal supplies, or they have in their, any of their, they have their funding that's not BOE related, it's like their student activity fund, that they get money from the PTA. If they wanted to add something to get more to balance it out, they could.
I think the superintendent has been really wise in the spending of funds that the school received for specifically from COVID and the different grants, and making sure that the learning piece was addressed. And to Mr. Christensen's concerns, which is why he worked with Bill. So far, we had nothing in this plan that touched kids, and there's no doubt they were affected by COVID. So being able to see that they have funds to get back to just some of the things that they used to do. They used to have people come in all the time, and that's really kind of gone by the wayside. Those funds had to go to making sure their learning needs were addressed. So I fully support this project.
Anyone else? Anything to say? Before we vote? Are you ready to vote? Oh, it's good. Did you have something to
Here we
say?
go.
Oh,
Vote.
you're ready to vote? Okay, all right, all in favor of awarding the $20,000 for the extended learning opportunities? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so that one is approved.
Thank you.
Right. We have $149,000 left.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion that we award ARPA 46, the Eco 360. Yeah, for $10,000.
One second.
Okay, so that one, I think, as the chair of the CIP committee, who just saw this request come in there, I think it's something that I think is important to do, and I think it's also, if it's something that we can take off of the CIP, we should. So, and it's also not very much money to solve a big problem, so I think we should do that. Anyone else? All right, ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Oh, these two abstain. But it still passes, so, okay, so now we're down to 139.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the stove for the senior center. I think it's a safety issue, and those folks need a good stove.
I agree.
Okay, any other comments about that one?
I'm just really hoping that we can, if they're able, this may be a Donna question, she's not here. They talked about selling the stove
Yeah.
that they currently
You
had.
did say that.
Whether or not the funds could come back to this project, or would it go back into the general funds? How does that?
Yeah, I
Some
think
sense
it,
of how that would
I
work
think it would have to go into the general
into the
fund.
general fund?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Unless they sold it outright and then use the money to go towards the stove, which brought the cost down.
yeah.
I
that
don't
would-
think a
Yeah.
vendor is gonna give them any money for that stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was addressed when he came in, and I didn't think that was the direction
no.
Ed said that they were gonna be going in. I thought that was. I vaguely remember us asking about that specifically, and so that vendor wasn't interested in
No,
purchasing it.
no vendor's gonna be interested in buying. this
Right.
stuff.
Okay, well, we'll put some money back into a pot,
Yeah,
Yeah,
whichever one it is.
right, and it also probably would end up on the CIP request list at some point, even though it's not that much money, but, it's also not that much money, and it solves a problem. That's what I think. All right, is everybody ready to vote on that one? Yeah. All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right. That one's good.
what are we down to?
We are down to, let me just put this fixed up. Now 133.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve Article 43 recess equipment.
Any discussion about that one?
Should I say for 20,000?
Is that one, is it?
Was that 20?
It's 3,000 for the recess equipment?
wasn't 20,000.
It's on my sheet for
Yeah, it's on mine for 20.
Yeah.
20,000. That was
Oh, I
gonna be
made a
part of my discussion.
I made a mistake on
That I
that
didn't
one.
think it was that much, but hey.
That's a lot of recess equipment.
Sure is.
Yeah,
A lot of
I think,
recess equipment.
because I typed that
20,000?
in, I was,
Okay, okay, that was, when we had discussion, that was gonna be my first question is, I remember it being little and thinking, couldn't we use some more money?
yes.
Do you think you need any more, Phil?
That was when I said both of those projects you could go up or down on.
So
Can we approve more than what was sent to hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So, like the project is set to hearing and then we can make adjustments up or down.
Mhm.
All right, so can I amend my motion to approve ARPA recess equipment in the amount of $6,000? Split evenly between 2 fiscal years.
And you
I'll
second.
second
Any more discussion about that one? All right,
So that was, 3,000 for this year and 3,000 for next year. So that gives $3,000 to each school as opposed to 1,500.
okay, so the total is 6,000.
6,000.
Okay. All
I
right,
think it'll really give them the opportunity to,
There's no problem using the money. I don't know what the deadline is for using the ARPA money.
ours, it has to be encumbered by December 31st, 2024 and expended by December 31st, 2026.
It won't be a problem.
No,
Still at the end.
yeah.
Fair enough.
I think that will allow you to, kids really to expand. If a school project goes forward, they can look towards whatever newer area they're looking at, whether it's a new renovated somewhere else, or at all school, and maybe get some more kids in on the process because you will go over 2 school years.
If they don't, whatever they don't spend in year one, does it roll to year two?
I mean, you have the whole time to use it.
Just in their budgeting
Yeah.
question, I think that's important for them to, they said, hey, we really want this bigger item.
I'm comfortable with that.
yep,
We'll not be able to get to it as much when you think so, yeah.
sure, that's correct. Any more discussion about that one? Okay, go ahead, Sue. Okay, all in favor of awarding ARPA 43 for recess equipment in the amount of $6,000? Please say aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so that one's approved as well. And we currently have 127,000 left at this point.
Is that including the 50,000 per side?
That includes the 50,000 put aside. Yep. Yes, just to recap, we have 50,000 put aside. We have 10,000 for the E-code 360, 20,000 for the extended learning opportunities, 6,000 for the recess, and 6,000 for the stove. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to award ARPA 39A for the repair of the library retaining wall. Okay. Any discussion about this one?
No, I just want, I guess I think one of the things that came up, I don't know if it was our last discussion or public hearing that we talked about, is knowing that they, this was the part where they talked about doing the cleaning and preparing the wall themselves. So I would hope that they include that project, and maybe we can communicate to them, working together with them to reduce any potential liability on their end, that the project should be done start to finish.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and also they have to get competitive bids.
they have to get competitive.
So this 13,000 is what they asked for. It might not be as much as they need, or it might be, I don't know. And that's the problem that we have with all of these requests, really, because you just never know. But basically, if they can't get it done for 13,000, they're going to need to find an alternate funding source, which could be their own funds. They could ask for more from somewhere else, but they need to start somewhere, I think. And that project seems pretty important because it definitely is starting to give away. So, and we don't want to have a bigger problem. So this was my comment on that one. Anyone else have a comment on that one? I think we're ready to go. And all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, that one is approved. Anyone want to make another motion?
So I just wanted to jump in on ARPA 45. I'm not going to participate in any votes, but we've been looking at some more recent similar projects in other towns and comfortable that the EDC could bid it out for something closer to 40,000. So recognizing that there's more requests than funds, I think that if the commission wanted to vote on that project, could do it for something at 40,000 instead of 60.
Okay.
Well, that's right.
We are at 114, yep.
Is there anything we think we would remove from this list? Like, this would be the time we make those motions as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I know, this one I think is important. I'll make a motion to award ARPA 40A, the library gutters and downspouts.
I would support that.
Is that a
Real
second?
bone of contention there, wasn't it?
Is that a second? Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah,
Are we in discussion?
yeah, discussion.
I just really would like them to do some more research before they go out and just put a bid out, and so that we can, I think maybe some of the money needs to go to clearly identifying the work that needs to be done there. I'm not sure that we've landed on, that even they have, right? I think we talked about the fact that we don't have, in my mind, adequate individuals in town to handle all that process. So they're really trying to take quotes that people give them and interpret them, and working with that figure in that project to make sure that the absolute best use of it is identified to start with.
Mhm.
So whether that's, starting with some engineering
Yeah,
to identify, I think that's probably the caveat I'd like to see on this project is it's not a shovel-ready project in my mind,
Shovel ready.
right? We clearly, we'll use the Parks and Rec, we knew what was wrong. We've worked with an engineer to come in and describe the deficiency, exactly what needed to be done to get from A to Z. And so Parks and Rec can come in and say, we need this much money, this is the work that's gonna be done. I'm just not sure that the library board, and I think they're working diligently to get answers on things that have not been done over the years. And I just wanna see them do some more work before they run out to get a bid to replace the gutters, and then
right,
that not be what's needed.
right.
So I keep struggling with all these requests because some of them, frankly, the bollards and emergency egress, I'm not in favor of. I don't think that we've been given enough information to demonstrate that they're needed, and I think that they frankly are gonna become just emergency egress in the public building. I just think that that's something that we don't need to get into. A code official hasn't said it's necessary, and I don't think we should touch it. But we have 13,000, 9,600, 8,000, 21,000, 55,000, all for repairs to the library structure and to the exterior. And I feel like some of the requests, at least in my opinion, are higher than they need to be, and others are lower. And we've talked about not being shovel ready, and I struggle with, we're gonna fund, if we fund one, they may come in too high, another one may come in too low, another one they may need more money, another one may not need to be done at all. And I kind of brought this up before, but it just keeps hitting me in the front of the head of, can we just allocate a certain amount of money to the library? And how they appropriate it is up to them. So if they determine that the window treatment, which is at 55,000, is the most important, it comes in at 75,000, and they can remove something that's like a retaining wall off the list, versus coming to us and saying, we need 25,000 more for this, but you've already funded all these other things too. Because that 50,000 contingency is going to go away. And so if we don't have all the information, and it's not shovel ready and they come back, we're only going to have to pull from that contingency. And I don't think that's fair to other people that have an exact amount.
Mhm.
But what are we supposed to say in the 11th hour? You can't move forward now because you have 90% of the funding.
Right,
So I still feel like we should give them money, and they should have to appropriate what they feel is the most important. Because it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of money.
I think in a perfect world, it's a great idea, but given their presentations and the level of expertise over there, I think there needs to be some oversight on the projects, as you suggest. I don't know what resources are in town other than you, and your stretch thin. But I'm a retired facility manager, and I'd be willing to work with them on specifically the gutters and fine tune that and get back to you or the chairwoman on that if you'd like me to do that. And I don't want to step on toes if you had other ideas.
I know a few of us have gone up there, I think in the rain, to see what we could observe, at least from the ground. And, you know, the two hypotheses that came around was either the water's overshooting the gutter coming off the roof and just missing it, because it is tucked in under the overhang a little bit. Or it's a gallon per minute issue that the downspout, the above ground part of the downspouts is restricted.
We also, sorry,
But near as we know, the pipe that goes underground is looks to be a 6-inch PVC pipe, which is bigger in diameter than what the two downspouts are on either end that are feeding them. To put simply a square shaped gutter instead of a semicircular gutter, I'm not sure that's the fix for that.
we talked about diverters also. The engineer talked about diverters, which might be an option if there's an area where the water's really heavy.
And there's a valley that comes down. in
Yeah.
spot.
Diverters are very effective in some spots. So I said my piece.
I think that's a great idea, because Mike, I hear what you're saying, but I'm concerned that if something is way over cost and what they were gonna do, they go, okay, well, we can't do that, so we'll go ahead and put in an egress because it's gonna be cheap and just not follow through. I think in order for us, as well as some of the other boards and commissions that are hearing these concerns about the library, to help them be successful would be to help step in and help facilitate some of these so that they can bring the best projects forward that are as close to ready to go as possible. And that, you know, it might just be easier to do what seems like a quick fix to check something off their list. And that we might not be doing something right at the end of the day. That's. How many of these have gone to CIP? I know they come in on Wednesday, but I'm curious.
CSE has another 245,000 in it. I think they're all in addition to this. So that's why, I think there might be a little bit of overlap, but I don't think so.
Because if I recall, didn't they say almost all of these projects, I'm trying to look at my notes from our public hearing, that they were short funds? Like the quotes that they were quoting in the public hearing were well over the
Right.
amounts they had asked for.
Right.
And if they didn't then submit them to CIP, where are they plan, and I know I asked the question, where would they get the funds over that, and they had no answer for that. They didn't have any funding for that, and that's concerning to me. Again, I think part of how we have to look at it is we want successful use of these funds and helping the library board in their work to be successful in that is really, you know, important to me. So I'm not, while I'm not opposed to some of these projects, I'm not in favor of moving the funding forward till we can really get some secure answers.
Can we table?
Yeah, we can table it. My thought is to, like, they as a board have no experience with the CIP process or some of these big capital projects, and just the whole bidding part of it is one thing, the overseeing it and the permits and all of that, it is overwhelming, and if you've never done it before, it's a lot. And so I'd be hesitant to say yes to all of these things all at once, because it's the likelihood that they are going to be done in the next year is low. I think all of these things, I think giving them enough to start doing the most important things is important to do, but we gotta get started with some of this stuff, but, which one of these things? That's the question. I mean, I think the gutters needs to be looked at. It's definitely a problem. It's 21,000 the right number? Again, they won't know until they get 3 bids, till they talk to another engineer. Maybe Stu can go and help them. That'd be great, like, but I think they should I think they need to have some funding approved before they can move forward as well. I don't think that, things are gonna get going until they have the promise of some funds, so. I don't know. So right now, we have a motion to approve the gutters, right? And in a second, and we just talked about it, so that's just where we are right now, and then Mike had his suggestion, but. Any other comments about the gutters and?
I know that other towns have had folks basically do an evaluation on the structures. I know the town of Scotland had someone come in and look at all the town buildings, in and out, what needs to be done, what's this, it's like, they're asking us for all these various components, but what we're missing is the first piece, which is like a master plan of how they're gonna keep, so I'm just struggling with how we are gonna get there. We're like so late in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the,
I don't know how much that would cost, or if it's even possible to have that done, but it would just seem to me, like, I don't know how anybody else feels, but like emergency egress, they haven't, I said that and the 9,600 for bollards, that's $17,600. I would rather appropriate a portion of that to have a building assessment done and have a professional go in there and lay it all out for us and give us a report so that the town knows. I don't know.
I think that would really help the library board.
Well, I guess the dime ultimately comes back to the town anyways, right? If there's a structural deficiency or something, they're gonna come to the town.
Right.
I'm just wondering if I have no idea.
I think of the work that was done on the old town hall and that assessment was a clear document that you utilized. I was able to pick up and say, this is what was laid out and prioritized. That Castle Bowes study, the lesson between the fire departments and the senior center, laid out some things based on needs for those. And maybe the best way we can help them to determine their need is funds for an assessment. And do we talk to them about coming back to us for that, so that we can see, like, we could give the money, if we're looking at the bollards and the egress, and that money would be better spent on something else that they're not seeing simply because that's
It's
outside of their
internal.
skill set.
Yeah, what if it's
Right.
internal? What if they have some HVAC mechanical fail, like, they just don't know. But what would happen is if there was some major failure after all these funds are appropriated that wasn't part of that, they're gonna go to the town and say, we need 100K because of X, and we're gonna have no choice. The town is gonna have to find that money. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like we don't really know exactly the totality of the issues, and we're sort of piecemealing some solution together. But those solutions haven't been arrived at by any qualified professional. I'm not discounting the library's work, they're just not qualified. Neither am I or anybody else, really.
And if they got another 200,000 sitting at CIP, it would help work on that and then prioritize for them the things they should be. Like, you don't want to fix this until you fix this. And they're kind of identifying it as they see, and rightfully so, right? I think they've heard us say, you need to address some issues. They see things that weren't done, but I'll go back to how can we help them be successful? And successfully utilizing town taxpayer dollars.
Mhm. So where does that leave us with this specific project, the library gutters and downspouts? What's everyone's thought about that? I just know, because I've seen it, how it floods, it is a real problem, and it does ice over, it's dangerous, it's also not good for the front there. That definitely needs to be fixed. Do I know if what they're proposing is the right thing? I don't. Is 21,000 the right number? I don't know. It's a number to start. Maybe it's more than enough. Oh,
And I think that's the, at least for me, is if they say, okay, 21 grand, they do gutters and downspouts, and if there's still a problem, what do we do? Do we know that that will solve the problem? Maybe others feel differently. I don't know that that was ever really truly answered. And that's what I'm struggling with is the funds. I don't know if they're gonna fix these issues, make them somewhat better, solve them, not solve them. I don't know. I'm stuck.
If we were to completely change the request, right, it's wrapped up in these things in this specific item. And ask them to come back before us to talk about how we can get them to successfully identifying what needs to be done, and prioritizing it and moving forward through both ARPA funds and CIP. Is that something you think we would want to put back to public hearing because it's completely different, or do we feel it's competently wrapped up in the structural needs of the building?
I wouldn't think so, because to me, we're sharpening the pencil, we are getting closer to what the actual problems are and what the actual costs are versus just sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't think so personally.
I agree.
I'm not sure you'd get more information from the library board if we had more technical.
I mean, there's support for what we're talking about now, Sue. That's where I'd like them to come back in and hear where we're talking. We're not just gonna say, we don't think this is the right thing to do, so no, we're not gonna do it. And then it goes somewhere else, and we're still kind of chasing our tail on what is the right thing, what is going to correct the gutter issue. We wanna make sure we help fund the most successful project that's going to hopefully alleviate this for the next 20 years. And if that's taking individual projects, setting them aside and giving them a resource to get the answers, and then we can address funds for them off that priority list. So if we don't say no, and we just say, okay, we're gonna give you X number and hold off on spending the rest until we can see that assessment.
mhm.
Maybe that's the best way to help them, because this is so far outside of their wheelhouse, and they are trying to do their due diligence.
Yeah,
Just, it's beyond their scope. I can relate to how, how they feel and trying to interpret. And on top of that, there's a whole process that I'm not sure they're well versed in. So,
Stuart, are there people out there do you have a sense of what something like that would cost if you have a background in that?
Building
Like-
review,
Yeah, like an assessment, prioritizing a 10-year plan of what will need to be done.
I've been involved with those rarely because I'm not sure we get what we want. An architect goes in and talks to some emotional people about the safety of an office on the 3rd floor, and he comes back and says, yeah, you should do it. If that's what we're looking for, I think this committee could probably evaluate that on their own and say we should do it or not do it. In regards to other things that might be broken in the next 5 years, that's really a CIP, to me, process, and not really the function of this committee to plan for the demise of a boiler in 5 years. That's true CIP.
Right.
So I've dealt with architects and engineers for 30 years. And I'm 50-50 on their value. Sometimes their value is great. And sometimes when you ask if the building's green, they give you a 10-page report that the building's green.
Mhm.
It's like the old adage of, you ask a lawyer what time it is and they tell you how to build a watch,
Mhm.
So that's my take on that. And this town has resources that could probably resolve some of these things. I could ask around if you wanted building review and get you some prices on that.
What was the scope of review that MCOR did for the schools? Was that simply mechanical systems, or did they look at it slightly bigger?
Yeah.
that's what in their wheelhouse.
Yes.
And the old town hall was done by a historical specialist.
Yeah, they were like a consulting firm that had an engineer and an architect and historical building expert, the person. And things like the paint, like we haven't even talked about the exterior window treatment painting, but like, that's another thing that's on this list is, 55,000 to paint the windows.
So, I mean, I just did I guess what I'm thinking is almost like you have a home inspection done before you purchase. There are firms that do that on the commercial side. I just looked at one that look at the structure, the exterior roofing system, plumbing system, insulation, ventilation, heating, cooling, electrical, interior. So, you know, I think that we're not necessarily looking to have a code evaluation done because the building isn't new. And so that wouldn't be, you know, whether it meets current building code or fire code or whatever. I think that's what we're looking at, because we're not gonna make those changes, but it's just like a home inspection. At least that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, so there are certainly those companies appear to exist.
So with the absence of a real facilities director, I think then contracting out that kind of work to help them have a plan of needs. Because again, how does this funds play into what they're gonna go to CIP with? And are we gonna give them money to do something that they should be working together? I would have liked them to see them come with both. And if we don't give them what they need, where are they gonna get the remainder of the funds? They have an SCIP and they told us they don't have it within their budget. So,
Well, as Mike says, everything eventually comes back to town, and that's,
yeah.
you are the pockets.
But I have, and there's a process to go to obtain those funds. If they secure a contract without having checked up all the right steps, I have a lot of concern about that. And so I sound like a broken record, but I think we have to make sure what they're asking for is the most urgent need that we can help with.
Mhm.
I don't wanna do a project before another one and then have something undone. They say it's something more to fix the water issues. It's more than just the gutters. And we put $21,000 into gutters, only to find out they're gonna have to rip up that work because something else needs to be done.
Or even like the window project, if, you know, they start painting and then they find out that there was something wrong with the roof that was leaking in, they have to
Yeah.
that's worst case scenario, but.
We have to, as a town, address all these things and find the best way to utilize these funds plus, our typical taxpayer funds, local taxpayer funds to get them all done in the right order, in the right need. They've talked about the water in the basement and what's causing that. Is that more pressing and more troubling to the structure of the building right now than painting the sun faded back? I think it's important to say that, but is that the first thing that they really need? Or adding bollards where, we may not agree they need to be.
Right. All right, so the motion before us is just about the gutters, so are we ready to vote on that one? You think? Yeah. All right, let's vote. All in favor? And let's see, if we vote yes,
Doesn't mean removing it, just means not funding it currently.
right,
Or
yeah, if we vote, yeah, so the motion is to approve it, so if everyone votes no, it doesn't mean that it goes away. It's still be on the list to decide about, because the motion is not to take it off the list. So, okay, so all in favor of awarding the library gutters and downspouts? Say yes.
Yes.
All right, Stu said yes. All opposed? Aye. Anyone abstain? Okay, who abstains? Okay, so, so that one is still just sort of hanging out in the, we don't know, pile.
You abstain?
Stuart did, yep. Okay,
When would we address a plan on that? Or do we need a formal motion to address a plan? I mean, what does the committee do?
Mhm.
They cannot do anything over the next month.
I'm happy to talk to I could talk to Jim and Randy, see if they have any thoughts. I could talk to Scotland and see what they did, how they arrived at that, just the methodology. How did they get to the point where they felt they needed to have somebody look at the buildings, and what was the scope of that review? There may be things that Jim and Randy can do. We look at commercial buildings all the time. So maybe, I mean, I can look to see some of that stuff. Maybe we see if Jim can join the next meeting. Can come to our next ARPA meeting.
If I recall their discussions and just looking at the projects, these aren't things that are gonna be done now anyway, right? We're in the middle of winter, they're
Right,
not.
right, that's the thing. They
They
can't
weren't
be
going to
done.
be completed, even the one we did approve is not gonna be completed.
Months away.
Right, so I'd rather there be some communication with the library to let them know maybe the path that we're looking at.
Mhm.
And I would not be in favor of putting off, I'm sorry, voting off the plan, the gutters, the downspouts, or 40A and 40D. Just press pause while we contemplate
Mhm.
a primary source of.
Well, A already was approved.
40A
Oh, 40A,
and
yeah,
40D.
right, 40A and 40D, okay. And also, they are coming to CIP on Wednesday, so it's good timing with that. Just to look at all of the things. Anyone want to make another motion? We have 114,000.
So for discussion purposes, I will move center school playground servicing for 90,000.
There a second? For a second, it. All right,
So it's a big number,
We approve that, how much would be left?
not much.
Uh,
So that's why I think we should discuss it.
So we're saying no to all the libraries.
I'm not saying yes to this, I'm saying because I want to discuss it, we
Oh.
should, I put forward a motion so we could have discussion
Oh,
on the
we're having a
project.
discussion. You didn't make a motion to approve it.
No, I made motion to approve it, but it was seconded and I said for discussion.
Okay.
yeah,
So we would have the 13,000, the 9.96, the 8,000, 21, the 55, which totals whatever that is, plus this 90,000 and the EDC request. So that's 150 plus whatever the library is.
right, right, and another way to look at it is if this 90 is approved, there's 24,000 left.
I mean, I mentioned that the EDC plan could be reduced to 40. We've talked about all the library projects being better refined. So should we do anything further from here when much of what's there is in flux? And
So I will say that I put forth a motion so that we could discuss this one specifically. We haven't discussed it at all.
So my comment would be, my comment would be that I attended the meeting the other night where the superintendent presented the new school. And my concern would be that, I don't know how the town, when's that referendum ever gonna come up for vote?
February 1st.
No, February 1st is when the school building committee will determine their project. And right now, the plan is end of March for a referendum.
And I know that breaking ground and finishing the school is years away, but I would personally like to see how the town feels about that. And I'm not quite sure how the referendum would be presented. One would be a new school for X amount of dollars, and one, would there be an option for
So,
money thrown at these schools to upgrade systems?
so the school building committee will narrow down their 4 projects, a new school or a renovation fall school, plus each of them has an option of an auditorium, to 1 project. That project would move to referendum, and it would be based on the cost of that project. Simply that project, not any other potential project in town. So I asked, we discussed this because I think it needs some discussion. I fully support this, but with the fact that we have this project in place, I just want us to take a look at the bigger picture. It's also on CIP, and I will say it's been on CIP for several years, so this isn't something that just came up in 1 year. They've been asking for this. But if the referendum is a no, no to everything, then we still have 2 schools. and this would still be a real need. And so, again, this isn't something that's going to happen right now. The temperatures are too cold for it to happen. Superintendent was very clear to us that that number is a moving target. They would only hold that number, so he gave us the last number he knew. So it could be more. I would like us to really consider it, but you know, it's, if there's a project, either one, it leaves center school not being used as a school. If it stays being used as a town facility, then it is a town, a playground that's accessible to, it's still a public space, and this would be incredibly beneficial. But there's a lot of unknowns, and none of them would affect this winter because it wouldn't be poured, so the playground would still be used in the same manner. So maybe this is another one we could kind of press pause on,
Wondering, or even if we just wait until after, like, end of March, we
right?
might know better,
Mhm.
table it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly beneficial, I think. If that building is used as a school, yes, that's how I feel. If that isn't being used as a school, still gonna be used as a municipal facility, then yes, I think it's beneficial. Right now, the benefit we heard without question is that it would allow kids to have recess out there all year round, not only when the winter weather was at bay, and a day like today. So there's a lot of pluses to it. I don't want to say no to it, but
I'm in agreement with you.
yeah, maybe just if we keep this one in discussions for a bit.
Mhm.
And Stuart, getting back to your question about what happens if the town votes no on either new school or then all school, there are a couple $1 million of requests pending in CIP for the schools, with probably, by the superintendent's estimate, 15 million on top of that needs to be done. That things that have been held off. An example, I think just ventilating one wing is $750,000 in all school. And there's a whole lot of those all stacked up, ready to go, depending on what's gonna happen. So the expense is a brand new school, renovate all school, or ultimately fix both schools and keep what you have. All involved, all of it. The thing is, with the projects of repairing this and that in the existing schools, as I understand it, the reimbursement rate is, or the eligibility for reimbursement for many of these projects is very, very low.
I'm not sure that this is a reimbursement project. I think this is,
No, I'm not gonna overall, but
Yeah.
if, go back to the question about, do we have to fix up both schools? The answer is yes. But a lot of that dollars will be 100% town dollars as opposed to a 60-40 split when building a new school. So the bill's coming either way.
or even renovating hall school.
Yeah.
Right, so if there's a, you fix the parking lot now, it may not be covered, but if you do it as part of the project, and don't quote me on that one, I just made up a project. And, but part of a building project, they'll cover that. So replace the windows, they'll cover either the window or the casing, not both, I can't remember which way it goes. In a complete renovation, they would do all of it as part of your reimbursable project. So,
So one of the ills of this particular item is that it's coming, we're considering it so late in the game. And money is at a premium right now. 90,000 eats up a lot of the balance. If we looked at this 6 months ago, and it has to do with children, it's like a no-brainer for all of us. Let's just approve it. And now we're deliberating over it for one reason, is that we say yes to this, we say no to 5 other things. So just to define where we're at in the decision-making process. How do you say no to kids on a playground? The other issue I have is, I don't know what the trend is. This something that all schools are putting in everywhere and we're the last to consider it? Or was there an incident in the town where a kid got hurt in a playground? Or I grew up on asphalt. I'm old school, obviously, but
so ours are asphalted, they have wood chips in them, and so
Yeah.
it takes that playground out of play in the wintertime, they have to close the whole playground. And yes, I think some towns have moved to a more modern product. down and we just haven't, we have,
It's the ADA
ADA
compliant,
compliant. There
too.
is
You
one
can feel over it.
area at center school that has this rubberized surface, a smaller area that can stay open. And this wouldn't be around the swings. So I think you're right. We would, if this had come in the first batch, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it. And for me, the press pause is simply, let's see which direction our
So if we do a new
project, so-
school, would this be included in the new school, a special playground? Or it's not even being considered in the new school?
well, there'll be a playground. The surface they're using has yet to be determined. There's a cost in the project for the playground. I couldn't say specifically if it was a rubberized surface, but my guess would probably be yes. To move to this kind of product, but
And the other thing, Stuart, is because it's center school, the town's people, not just the school children, use that playground after school hours and on the weekends. So it's one of 2 playgrounds we have in town, basically. So,
Okay.
so it isn't just this related to the school. That's another way to look at it, but that just confuses it even more, I think. That way.
yeah, part of me says I need to wait to see what that decision is, but at the end of the day, that building is not being used in either of the decisions.
Right.
So I think it just helps us have a more defined conversation about it, because if that building stays as a municipal facility, this is absolutely without a doubt, in my mind, something that's beneficial to townspeople, because it's used all the time.
Mhm.
If you've ever had your kids at baseball game, a little league game, and you have another one, they're on the playground, you're at an event at the firehouse and kids are on the
The
playground.
ice cream social.
Ice cream, right, so many things. It's incredibly beneficial, but yes, at this point in the game, it's $90,000 to the library, $90,000 to kids. Who wants to make that choice?
Right.
Yeah.
But we're tasked with
We have to do it.
it. We have to. So if we kind of pause this and the library discussion, we kind of put them all together
Mhm. Okay.
and circle back.
All right, so we need to vote on your motion, which again, if we say no to it, it just means it's gonna stay on the list. All right, ready to vote?
Do we have to vote? I can either withdraw my motion or amend my motion to table this discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be better to
Yeah.
table it.
Yeah,
Agree.
I don't want it to look like we're all saying no to the
right.
project.
I agree. So,
Well done, Stuart.
Yeah,
so can then I move to table ARPA 42, thank you. 2.
sure, and there's a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jenny's eyeing too. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So just to give you guys a time check, it's 2:45, so I think we have a hard stop at 3. So we have 15 minutes, and I'll tell you what's left. Right now, we have 40,000 for the economic development strategic plan. We tabled the center school,
Was 45 approved?
45 for what?
Nothing was approved.
No, ARPA 45.
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, we haven't.
That's open. I have that as open.
Yeah, that's open.
Right.
It was submitted at 60, and then Mike just told
Changed it
us
to
this morning
40,
today that it could be 40. And we tabled ARPA 42, we tabled ARPA 40D, the window treatments. We tabled the gutters and the downspouts and the other 2 library items. Sorry, and that means we still have 11,000. Oh, I'm sorry,
We still have
114,000 that we could appropriate today of all of those projects.
What's the status of the emergency egress request from the library?
Nothing.
I don't think there's any status.
That
No
hasn't been,
status.
yeah, that one has not been voted on to fund or to table or to.
Or fine tuning.
or fund.
I'd like to make a motion to remove that, the emergency egress from the library project. from the
Alright.
budget.
Okay. Is there a second on that one?
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
And that, just so everyone knows, that one's ARPA 39, 39C
39C.
for
So
$8,000.
Stuart, if I recall, the reasoning for that was they believed it was an OSHA violation. And then you shared with us,
There's many of exceptions in that same
Yeah.
code, which, and I didn't read the entire thing, but talked about occupancy, how many people are involved. But on a more practical basis, as I saw where they showed me where they wanted to put this door, it ends you right back going up the front entrance anyways. So with that guy's there standing with a gun at the front counter, you don't get around it.
Bless you.
And talking with the fire marshal, there's no code on his side of things to say that additional exit is required.
so it's not fire code, it's not building code, it's a potential, depending on what business it was, or the number of employees, OSHA issue, which we don't fall into that category as I heard you read it.
But part of the issue that they're using space that was never architecturally shown on the original blueprints as office space. Did they decide to use another area as office?
There's not an office in
Because
there.
the architect would have had to take into consideration the codes for that.
There's one or two small offices on the right-hand side as you walk,
That were meant to be
towards the back of
offices.
which were meant to be offices.
Right.
The rest is kind of open storage, rack space for books that aren't in circulation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think they're using it in the way it was originally intended.
Yeah, they also, I think had requested that we add more funding to it, because once they did have the building official or the fire marshal, I think, came out and said they would need to put the exit light over it, and that was gonna add a couple more $1,000. I don't remember the exact amount, but,
If you do this, now you have to do that.
right,
Which circles back to my issue is that had we not encouraged them to discuss with the fire marshal, and they just had somebody put in as they requested a new doorway.
To me, the regulating authority is the fire marshal in town, and you're saying the fire marshal doesn't see the need for any other egress. And to me, that supersedes everything.
okay.
I don't understand why they use OSHA other than it being an emotional word.
Well, because-
Okay, let's do it.
One authority said no, so they don't confer a second opinion. so to speak.
I don't think that's it, Stuart. I think they followed up the way they should. Karen Ann from the beginning said this was something she was working on and believed in her studies of that process, that they were in violation of that. But when you read the code,
And again,
it's not a one size fits all.
Mike, have you seen OSHA come in and override a fire marshal in town, or any parties you've seen?
I haven't. Not personally.
I've dealt with OSHA for 25 years and I've never seen that.
Yeah,
And they refer to fire codes
exactly.
when they write their deficiency or about citations.
And, you know, and for, as I mentioned before, similar issues in many of the town buildings that, you know, somebody wanted to attack the town clerk, she's at the end and sure of diving out the window, you're stuck there. You'd love to have a door to run outside, I guess, but, you know, and that would apply to almost every part of every public building in town.
And I think that goes back to Karen Ann this was what she was living and breathing, the OSHA stuff, and believed that it was a matter of concern, but I'm not sure that fits what they really, their true intention of.
It's a big burden of proof to have OSHA come in and override a
Yeah.
local fire marshal. That'd be a big burden of proof for that to happen.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to take ARPA 39C, to deny it, remove it from the list. And it's been seconded, and we've just discussed it. Is everybody ready to vote?
Sorry, when we were going,
We're voting on the emergency egress 39C at the library.
Moving to remove it.
To remove,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that one we will remove, and I'll explain to them why. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, guys. The only other thing we haven't really talked about is the parking lot bollards. Anybody wants to make a motion about that?
I say we make a motion to remove that.
Okay, anyone second that?
What'd you say?
To remove.
I would second that.
Okay, any discussion about that one?
I think it's gonna cause more of an issue with plowing and
Well,
I think
100%.
there's good intentions, but I don't think that it's the right fit over there. It's still not. That's my personal.
Yeah, I think Troy and I went out there and looked at, took kind of the number of bollards they talked about putting around some light poles and not others, so they were kind of picking here and there because they're trying to fit something around where it doesn't go, and some I think would be impeding on the parking lot. I think the placement of them, if they need to go in, really needs to be investigated more, because now you've got
It's underground.
underground, yeah. And the first thing I said to Troy is that, you know, they want to put 3 here, where are they gonna put them? They're gonna be off center, they're gonna be in the right place. Again, I need a lot more evidence that they are required.
And dig it so they don't hit the wiring.
Yeah,
Coming in.
truck it, yeah.
That I hear, and nobody wants the expense of having to replace those light poles. I could think of what we could do to them instead of that, and, you know, those really pretty skinny poles, but as I was out at the new Mansfield school, the light poles are the same way, and I thought, oh, someone just taps those bad boys and they're gonna fall over. We're living that life now, so I think there's maybe another way to address their concern.
Lesson learned, it doesn't look as nice, but the ones at the truck stop, they're probably 1 foot in diameter, but the concrete goes 4 feet above the ground.
Similar to Hall School,
So,
the ones in the parking lot of Hall School are the same way.
yeah, the idea is to hit the concrete,
Yeah.
not fall.
Actually, we just hear about those at CIP. But so I think there's a different way, you know, again, one, they talked about putting 3, and there's probably this much room between the curb and the light. Where are you gonna put them? Because you have 3, are we just gonna put 3 in? I'm just not sure it's the
And who would be liable
Right.
if somebody backed into them? And
right.
is the town liable or it's?
And I think addressing the structural needs is more of a priority.
Well, I was gonna say, it's almost, sounds to me like it's the very similar conversation of with the egress for, with the fire marshal saying it's really not a good idea, it's not necessary, and the public works director saying not a good idea.
I believe also they said that, sounds like it happens like once a year, once every other year, and that it's a couple $1,000s to fix. And so if that's the case, then we're looking at spending $10,000 in the next 5 years, or 10,000 in the next 20, which is sort of what we'd be spending now to avoid spending that, maybe. Like it's not a given. So maybe it's just the cost of doing business. It's just a thing that,
I think so, and maybe they talked about putting some cameras in,
Right.
upgrading their cameras, so
Right.
maybe with that, they might be able to identify the vehicles that hit them, and then we can go after them and make them pay. The problem
Right.
that's been is a couple of the incidents have been vehicles that have happened after hours, and they just have no way to identify who hit them. So we go after the individual's insurance if we had it, so maybe with some upgraded security,
yeah.
we can address that. Light post issue.
Okay. So the motion on the table is to remove ARPA 39A, the parking lot bollards, or 39B, I'm sorry, for $9,600. And it was seconded, we just discussed it. Is everybody ready to vote? Okay, all in favor of removing it? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so that motion passes. I'm gonna put that one at 0. Okay, so really the only thing we haven't made any decision to either table or approve or deny is the strategic plan for $40,000 for EDC.
I'll move to, should I approve it? How much money is left?
114.
114.
If you move to approve it, it's only gonna leave us with like 70.
Yeah, but there's also 50 in the contingency fund as well. That includes with it. Yeah,
It's like dwindling down.
So I'll make a motion to, well, we don't have to, we can just leave it here to talk about, right? At another meeting, we have to table it.
yeah.
We'll leave it open for us
I
to
think we
talk,
should just wait a minute.
see how things play out and then add it to the
I mean,
conversation.
it's important. I think it's a very important thing, but
What are you referring to?
the ARPA 45, the
Strategic plan.
EDC strategic plan.
Yeah, I don't know much about it.
One concern I would have is, like many of the other studies or plans that have been done, where nothing happens, and perhaps EDC is promoting business development, that sort of thing in town, but the townspeople keep saying no. What you spend $40,000 on, ultimately it comes down to a vote by the taxpayers, and they vote no, no, no.
Well, I think that was the whole reason why it came up was because the POCD that's in place, it is going in a certain direction
Right,
and the people they have different ideas. So I think that's why this has come, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I just don't. look
So
around here.
I think it's important for that reason.
I'm gonna have to just go down and start it, because otherwise he's gonna be.
But the other thing I'm concerned about is the EDC, when has the last time the EDC met? I get it, they just don't have a quorum, and the chairperson resigned if they're hurting, so
Yeah, I mean,
tabling it may not be a bad thing.
there's nothing that's gonna happen in the next month. The idea is to, because we have such polarizing opinions about what the direction of the town should be, to spend the time to go through the process to really refine what the perspective is, so that there is a more common understanding of where we're going. Because people show up to a meeting and there's an application, but if you look at our attendance list, we haven't had anybody at the meeting since, with few exceptions. So until we have this big highlighter over some problem, you don't see anybody. And so you try to go through the process to understand what that common vision is, which I think, and what Wellington should accept or expect, because we're not Manchester or South Windsor or West Hartford. And so we need to look at the business side of what the market says and what the people in town are saying, and figure out how those come together, and then target that, which I think is the goal of that.
I mean, having helped you solely listen to Facebook comments, but some of the ones I saw were, we don't want transportation related businesses in town. They want other stuff. The reality is we have a couple exits on a highway that goes right through town. And that's gonna drive potential demand for what business would want to come here.
There's not a building in town that could not benefit from a planned obsolescence review. And every town struggles with that. And in lieu of that, we depend on government or selectmen to be facility managers and make decisions on, and CIP, make decisions on replacements. So that's what we have, and that's what we're dealing with. But I think we know that the library needs a couple of things. And I hate to sit here 30 days from now and struggle with, I'm sorry, Mike, something I'm.
No, she asked me
Oh,
a
no,
question.
I told, they need.
So I hate to be here 30 days from now and asking ourselves the same question as, why do we have enough information? And I think, I've made a suggestion that someone go out and just review the bid, talk to some vendors, and come back to the committee, write an email to somebody and say, I think it's a good idea. Don't copy the library board unless someone was asked to do that. But information is better than no information,
Right.
So I hate just doing nothing or approving something that we're all kind of nervous about.
So we'll hold off on the
Yeah, so we'll
EDC plan.
hold off on that one. And I think you guys have to leave.
We do, we
Okay,
actually.
it's 3:02 right now. So the only thing left is present to speak on the agenda, and I think We have two people from the public on the Zoom call. I don't know if either one of you has anything to say. I don't see any hands up. Okay, all right, well, we can.
I'll move
entertain a
to
motion.
adjourn.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everybody.